Welcome, everyone, to Buddha's Center. Let's begin with some supplication to Lama Tsongkhapa from his secret biography, written by Jayan Chuji Tashi Pelden, who was the founder of Drepung Monastery and a student of Lama Tsongkhapa. O sun-like prince of the conqueror, whose wisdom vast as the heavens has the brilliance of knowledge, that sees what ultimately is and what merely seems to be. O venerable Lord of the Dharma, most perfect Guru, the dust of your feet I place on the crown of my head. Even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who fill the 10 directions cannot describe the excellence of your body, speech, and mind. Yet out of passionate inspiration, I shall sing of them. Pray, listen for but a few moments. And from Saint Saraha's writings, by entering into emptiness but devoid of compassion, one will not find the supreme path. By meditating upon compassion alone, one will not attain liberation, but remain in samsara. The one capable of grasping the unity of the two will not remain in samsara, nor abide in personal nirvana. Hey, everybody. Feels so great to be here this evening and be able to talk to you about the stages of the path to enlightenment, so clearly written about by Lama Tsongkhapa, Independence Upon, that incredible text by Lord Atisha, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, and with the umbrella over all of it of Lord Maitreya's Abhisama Alamkara. So we're here tonight to be able to listen to the stages of the path that anyone starting from wherever they're at, someone like me starting from where I'm at, who maybe isn't even a participant on the path, if we look at it in terms of the spiritual levels, if we look at it in terms of the teaching shared in common with beings of small, medium, and great capacity, and knowing that one becomes a spiritual practitioner when one starts and evolves into this realization of a person of small capacity. And this is a very, very high realization. So this teaching that we're going to hear about shows someone like me how to become a spiritual practitioner. And once I've become a spiritual practitioner, exactly what I need to do in order to achieve the goal that I set out to achieve because I became a spiritual practitioner for some reason. So it's really incredible that we have these teachings that show us each and every step that we need to take from wherever we're at to be able to achieve a place where we've abandoned all of the afflictive obstructions and all of the obstructions to omniscience. And someone who has done that is called the Buddha, someone who's woken up from the sleep of ignorance and woken up from this sleep and of ignorance in such a way that it's not just the removal of the self-grasping ignorance, it's also the removal of the imprints of that self-grasping ignorance that disallow one from achieving the highest potential that everyone has to be able to achieve. So we have this beautiful, beautiful lineage in front of us to be able to learn from. And let's do as we always do. Let's begin by setting our motivation to be able to share this teaching with all sentient beings. We've been going over the section on equanimity because we've arrived in the foundation of all good qualities, the source of all my good at the Mahayana and the aspiring Bodhicitta section. So we've been talking about equanimity, which we know in the 7-point cause and effect instruction for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down from Lord Asanga. Passed down from Lord Maitreya to Master Asanga. We know that in that particular instruction that it begins with equanimity. So we've been talking about how to generate a non-biased attitude, how to generate an attitude that would equally be willing to benefit our friends, our, neutrals, and those we consider difficult people or consider our enemies. So we've been looking at our minds as we begin the class to see, as we invite all sentient beings to be our guests, to be able to share this Dharma with them, what our mind's reaction is like. And we won't get into too much of that before the actual teaching starts, because today we're fortunate enough to be able to listen to a translation of depending on how you number it, the fifth Panchen Lama Panchen Losang Yeshe, or sometimes enumerated as the second Panchen Lama's practice manual. And that practice manual has 9 topics in it. We'll get into all of this. And one of those topics, it deals with generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment and through the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And there's a beautiful meditation on equanimity there. The precept that is found when we look at the 7-point cause and effect instruction for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. That precept that's found in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and all the Lamrim manuals. When you read them and you look at the 7-point cause and effect, you see that you first must develop this kind of attitude of equanimity in order to have a foundation of your mind from which you can grow love and compassion and all of these other wonderful things that we want to have and sometimes think that we have. But when we look really closely at our mind and do exercises like we're about to do, we'll see that there are difficult beings that we don't really have as much of a wish to help out as we do those we're close to. And we certainly have less of a wish to help strangers than those we're close to. But we see that difficulty arising with those we find difficult in our lives, or those who don't think the way that we think. So we feel them to be different than us so much that they're wrong and we're right. So those are the beings that we really have to generate a mind that would equally be willing to benefit them. And this isn't like a stupid mind that just says, do anything you want to me. This is a mind that begins with the premise of, I would be willing to do as much for you to help you as anyone else. That doesn't necessarily mean allowing you to do bad things. That's not helping you. So, but if we start from a place of compassion, as we talked about before, that's a place from which we can make decisions that are realistic. And that can only take place if we have this non-biased attitude, because as soon as we have a superly heavily influenced bias towards our people, our group, only our family, as soon as we have this kind of bifurcation of those who are our people versus those that aren't our people, then we can't possibly generate compassion, the kind that we want to generate when we're talking about Mahayana, the great compassion that has as its object of observation all sentient beings. We can't leave any out. So we have to start with something that makes our mind willing to not leave any out, if that makes sense. And I think that it does, because the Lamrim's written in such a way so that we can evolve our mind in a realistic way. It doesn't say just jump right into wanting every being in the universe to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. It says, let's start with getting to a place where you would actually be open-minded enough and willing enough to think in that kind of way. And that does not start from a place where huge amounts of bias are there, and then you somehow convert that through some aspiration. So we convert our minds, we change our minds through cognitive kind of evolution, evolving, proliferation, maturing. That takes place in very slow steps, but we'll know if it's working if we actually take the steps on a daily basis to be able to have our minds have the results that these things say that they'll have. The 7-point cause and effect is called that because it results in bodhicitta. It results in the mind that aspires to enlightenment, as defined in the Abhisamalamkara by Lord Maitreya as the wish for enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, the wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. This enlightenment that Lord Maitreya is talking about is this enlightenment of a Buddha, where the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience are gone. And that is how you could work for sentient beings. And once you remove those things, you will have fulfilled sentient beings' needs, because we all need Buddhas. We all need beings who love us so much and put our needs at the first and kind of front and center, and doesn't just put our needs, puts all sentient beings front and center. And how many, who could do such a thing? Who could think of such a thing? Being a being who would put all these beings' needs front and center. It was just an amazing kind of idea to be able to think of. Who could imagine this being who was so wise that could come to all of us and figure out how to help us evolve spiritually? So it's really amazing that we have a pathway that will allow our minds to evolve to these places through cause and effect relationship, understanding that, you know, contaminated causes create contaminated things, and non-contaminated causes create non-contaminated things. So because things don't just suddenly stop working in terms of cause and effect because we reach higher spiritual realizations, it means that we can reach higher and higher and higher spiritual realizations until there isn't anything more to realize. And that's what a Buddha has done. A Buddha has evolved his or her mind to a point where there's nothing more that can be done in terms of maturation. It's a fully matured mind, and that we call a perfect mind, because there isn't anything better. There isn't a better kind of love and compassion you can achieve. There isn't a better way to just care for others that you could achieve. There's not a better wisdom that you could achieve. It's a mind of omniscience. There's not more power that you could achieve or more skillful means that you could somehow figure out. This is a state where you've got all of that. You've completed all of your own needs. And by doing so, you fulfill all of sentient beings' needs. Because as I said, what do we all need? We need someone who loves us and cares for us and will guide us to a place where we never suffer again and where we have the most amount of happiness possible. And also then we become the most reliable guides in the universe, just like Buddha Shakyamuni. And then we can truly help all sentient beings. It comes from this pathway of compassion that then forces the Buddha to just continue once he or she is completely enlightened and has achieved the path of no more learning, just to continue to help all sentient beings. And it's by making our minds start to become more like that, doing practices like this, that will allow us to know whether or not we're moving towards or away from our goal of perfect happiness and a freedom from suffering. So with that being said, let's imagine that we bring all sentient beings here, and we do it in the order that we talk about in the Lam Rim once we get to this point, past the equanimity teachings. So you can look at it in whatever way you'd like. When we're looking at equanimity, we start with those beings who are neutral, and then we move on to beings who we feel close to. And then we move on to beings who we feel are difficult, and then we just kind of move on to everyone else that would necessarily fit into that category, maybe even beings that are out there that we just couldn't even conceive of. And then when we do the meditations related to sentient beings being our mother and so forth, we start with those closest to us, then we move to neutrals, then we move to difficult people, and then we move to all sentient beings. So you can do it in a number of different ways. So in this case, let's just imagine that we bring those closest to us here, and then we bring those who are, we consider strangers here, and then we can bring those that we consider difficult beings here. And let's see how our mind reacts to them. And let's try to make it as real as possible. Maybe, the reason that we start with neutral beings when we're looking at equanimity, the reason for this logically, is to show how our mind jumps to attachment when we go from neutrality to someone we love. So we go from neutral to someone we love, someone we care about, friends, things like this. And then we move to someone we feel is difficult or an enemy. And we'll see our mind do this dance of three ways. And that dance of three ways, one where we just don't care, and one where we really care too much and we're attached, and that's a disturbance of the mind. And then one where we really push away, we have aversion, we don't want to help. We see these three kind of reactions that can occur in our mind. And when these are occurring, we know that's a mirror for us to see that we don't have a way to develop great compassion. We don't have a way to develop bodhicitta. We don't have a way to become a Buddha until our minds stop doing that kind of turbulent thing that it does when we look at those three types of beings. So let's bring all of the beings here, beginning with those ones we're close to, and then thinking about sentient beings who are maybe strangers, and then maybe sentient beings that are difficult. And I think it's really interesting that I was thinking about this stuff today. And we say, when we look outside sometimes, if you have a bird that comes all the time, right? A robin, I don't know, some bird that comes all of the time, and you say, oh, this is my friend. You feel like you've developed this relationship with this being that's outside. But if you looked at that being's lifestyle a little bit closer, smashing their face into the ground to eat your mothers alive, would you feel that same way? And it's not part of some big meditation. It's just a way of looking at how distorted the way that we live our lives is, and how we are so quick to make labels on a basis of designation that is kind of the, then designated as, this is my friend, this beautiful bird outside. But then if we looked at a person who just did things like that, like a robin, we would certainly call them just a distasteful, horrible person. But then, of course, like someone who is, if someone was eating people alive, you'd think they were pretty horrible. But the robin, you're willing to say, oh, this is my friend who comes. But they probably a moment before ate one of your mothers alive. So you see how strange samsara starts to be. And then you say, well, oh, that's because they're in the animal realm. Their mind's out of control. So you're only saying the beings in the animal realm are allowed to have minds out of control, not beings that you find distasteful that are maybe doing horrendous things, whose minds are out of control. The person isn't the bad thing, it's the affliction. The person's not the anger, the affliction is. So we just have to look at how our mind reacts to things, and we try to become more realistic over and over and over again. And that's what Buddhism is about, making our mind really tally with the reality, because it usually doesn't. It's not usually tallying with reality. We don't know that, we believe things that exist don't exist, and then we believe things that don't exist exist. And we live our life with this idea that grasps at things that are impermanent as being permanent, and grasps at things that are unhappy as being happy, and grasp at things that are impure as being pure, and grasp at things that have no self, that in terms of inherent existence, as having some kind of self, some kind of inherent existence, if we're looking at it in terms of the Prasangika. If we're looking at it in terms of the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, we would be talking about autonomous, substantial reality, so that kind of selflessness of person. But looking at it in terms of the Prasangika vehicle, we know that the selflessness, the subtle selflessness, the innate self-grasping ignorance is grasping at things as being inherently existent. So yeah, so this is what we have to come to the conclusion of. So with that being said, we imagine that we're inviting all of these sentient beings. I didn't want to get too, because I want to make sure we get to the Panchen Lama's text. So sorry for that kind of breaks on, but I just want to kind of move forward. Now we imagine we're bringing these different types of beings that we could actually come in contact with and know into this room right now, into wherever you are, to be able to hear these teachings, to be able to experience the merit field, and be able to hear about equanimity and hear about the stages of the path to enlightenment, for teachings for beings of small, medium, and great capacity, or the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity. So then you fill in those other beings, the hell beings, the hungry ghost beings, those animals that are, you just can't even imagine, or don't know, or don't walk by, or aren't in your garden, or aren't your dog you pet, or isn't your cat that just jumped up on your table. Those animals, strangers, because you can bring, the ones you do know into the first part, and then you can do the the demigods and gods, and the gods in the various realms of desire, form and formless realm. Try to leave none aside. The more you can do this, you're acquainting your mind with all of the realms that you'll have to help. So it's not like we're just doing this because of some ritual. It's when you become a Buddha, your kind of focal objects of your compassion will span out to hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods, gods who are desire realm, form and formless realm. Because even at the peak of cyclic existence in the formless realm, you're still stuck in samsara. And we know that Buddha's final teacher, before he went to go into the woods to find something more than he was being taught, the Lama Udreka had realized the peak of existence in terms of shamatha, in terms of the highest level, the formless realm. But Buddha knew that he hadn't figured out how to bring all sentient beings to a state of perfect happiness, free from suffering. He knew that Odreka, just through meditative concentration alone, hadn't figured out how to really help all sentient beings. And he left the palace out of compassion to figure out a pathway that would be able to help everyone and not just those in his kingdom. He knew as a king he could only help very limited people, but he knew that that wasn't what he wanted to do as a bodhisattva. He wanted to be able to help everyone be able to achieve their goals. And what are all of our goals? To be happy at the highest level and be free from suffering. So he left and went and sought out teachers and learned from teachers, and no one had discovered this nectar-like Dharma that he discovered once he, for 6 years, engaged in an analysis, into ultimate analysis of the self of person and self of phenomena. So these are the beings we bring here, all of them, and I'll recite verses from the prayer of noble conduct, the king of prayers, that's recited usually by teachers in order to just have more auspiciousness and more imprints within our mind, so that we'll be able to actually emanate to all sentient beings, invite them to your teaching, and go to where they are to teach them whatever they need to do, even if you're their mailman and you're like, oh, hey, you say something, and it's just so that that being can evolve just a little bit further. I mean, this is the kind of playing field that Buddhas are working on, that the emanation body is working on. It's just doing whatever it needs to do to help. Think about that. Just whatever it's got to do. Everyone's like, oh, what's this thing like? What's it? It's just it's this mind that sends out bodies to do whatever it needs to do to help. Sends out bodies that are in enjoyment bodies to Arya Bodhisattvas, because that's what they need to be helped. And sends out bodies of emanation, because that's what people like me need to be helped. They could be the post office worker, or maybe a bridge that wasn't there so you could get across a river to meet a teacher. Very strange things Buddhists can do. And imagine being a being who could do that as we recite this, and imagine you're inviting all of those beings. In the language of the gods, Nagas and Yakshas, in the language of humans, demons, and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Laike dan le dan no jinke drubon da da mi ge nan dan drawa gunji dranan ji tsamba tanje ke du da ji chuten do. And it's interesting, in a lot of tantric rituals, you'll see, the demons, you want to get all of the harmful spirits out, and we're inviting them all in. And I remember Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche stopped actually doing the Gitche, stopped doing the removal of the spirits rituals, and when he would give tantric initiations, because he said that, it just wasn't the right thing to do. It wasn't compassionate. It was ask them to stay and ask them to be able to receive the blessing of the initiation. And I found that to be very profound. I wanted to share that with you. He was just such a compassionate teacher, and had so many oral instructions to give. And that's why I'm here tonight, because he asked me to continue these instructions. And many of these things that I speak about are all just direct oral instructions that you're not going to just find in some book. They're oral instructions, direct experience instructions that were passed down because of his kindness and because of other teachers of mine's kindness. And I try to just suck it all in and hold it as close as I can to my heart and practice what I can where I'm ready to practice it, and put other stuff kind of on the shelf, and know that it's sitting there for when I'm ready to actually practice it, to dive deep into it. And that's what I found has been really effective, is figuring out where I'm really at in terms of a practitioner, if I am a spiritual practitioner or not. That's my own personal problem. Then, figuring out where I need to emphasize my practice in order to evolve and not have self-deception going on. Being willing to look at a glance at the whole path, but really focusing in on areas where I only maybe have this correctly assuming consciousness that could turn into a wrong idea overnight, with just the right causes and conditions, because I myself hadn't realized these things enough. So I think it's just really important that you actually practice these things, and you'll see an evolving of your mind. You'll see something actually happen. I can't say for myself anything miraculous has happened, that I can share with you that I have renunciation, bodhicitta, the correct view of emptiness, shamatha, but I have all of the makings for it. And I know that I can have those realizations occur because I've been giving the ingredients to make those realizations occur that the people who made them occur used. And our minds, my mind is just like their mind was, the nature of clear light and unsullied with adventitious stains. And then they removed those stains. They removed the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience, and then they had this shiny, healthy mind to be able to help me with. And I just need to rely on the same thing that they relied on in order to move the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. And if I do that, then I can have what I couldn't, imagine really having when I first got into Buddhism. But almost 30 years later, it really just seems so realistic and the only thing to do. It seems like the only thing to try to do, because cause and effect is real and these things do work if we actually put them into practice. If we don't put them into practice and we try to just do some high teaching things and then we move to this teacher, then to that teacher, and then go to this thing and then that thing, and we learn about this thing and that topic, and then we learn this, all our mind does is just starts to spin around like we're just learning all kinds of information. And then we start to say, well, Buddhism's not working. This pathway doesn't work. Maybe it's the lineage. Maybe it's, we need to plug this in. It's about to die. Maybe it's the specific thing that I'm learning. And I'm not saying that, if things aren't working, maybe try something else. But make sure that you're actually trying the practices in a order that the teachers say you have to go in, no matter what lineage you're from. You always hear about preliminaries. And in this tradition, the Galupa tradition, which I'm mainly trained in, you hear about these stages of the path. And there's even preliminaries of the small scope you find. So with that being said, we're going to talk about this pure Dharma tonight. You've invited all sentient beings. Now invite the merit field here. So we've invited the Bodhicitta field, inviting all sentient beings here in the varieties of realms, whether you figure 3 realms, 6 realms, however you do your realms, 5 realms, just everybody. And now imagine all of the sentient being, all of the non-sentient beings. I consider the merit field all Buddhas. You can consider it Buddhism, Bodhisattva. However, your mind relates to the merit field. We certainly don't say Buddha when we learn about it in the sutra tradition. We have specific titles, master this or Arya this, that. So it's however your mind relates to these things. So now invite the merit field here. Imagine that all the holy beings begin to start to file in here or just all at once emerge, however works for your mind best. Just imagine beings, the Buddha Shakyamunis in the space in front of you, His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the space in front of you, imagining Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche in the space in front of you, lamas like Khenso Lobsang Gyatso Rinpoche, Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, imagining holy beings like Dema Locha Rinpoche. These are all lamas that I was personally connected to, so I mention their names, but any lamas you are personally connected to who really you feel holy, make sure you think of them, any enlightened beings, and like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Chowdo Rinpoche, these holy beings, Ling Rinpoche, that are just walking among us, who you have connections with. Make this real, make it personal. Don't make your practice generic. Make it your personal practice because you're the one who's got to evolve. What your neighbor or the person that's studying in the class with you has to do to evolve their mind. There's a pathway that's similar, but where you're at and where they're at isn't the same. So really personalize these things and think about it in ways that you can relate to personally. So you're looking at all of these beings in the space in front of you, these kind lamas, Geshe Doje Damdu Rinpoche, Umzala Geshe Aga Rinpoche, imagining Gen Jeffrey Hopkins Rinpoche, imagining Lama Alan Wallace Rinpoche, if you're connected to beings like this, imagining them in the space in front of you. Now the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and Master Asanga, Arya Asanga, and then masters like Basu Bandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti, Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha and Master Drontompa, imagining the holy beings of the lineage of profound view passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Manjushri, to Arya Nagarjuna and masters like Buddhapalita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shantideva and Baba Vega and Chandrashita and Kamalashila, Lama Salimpa, Lord Atisha and Master Drone Tompa, imagining the holy beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Lord Vajradhara to Saraha, who we heard about from at the beginning of the teaching, from Saraha and Matripa, and masters like Tilopa and Naropa and Jetsun and Lotsawa Marpa and Jetsun Milarepa and Jagam Popa, imagining that Master Drone Tompa is passing down the lineage of the Lam Rim to the three old Kadampa lineages, the holy beings of the Nyingma, Padmasambhava, Longchenpa, Limimpham Rinpoche, and so forth, the holy beings of the Sakya tradition, Sakya Randawa, Sachin Kunganipo, Sakya Pandita, the holy beings of the Kaju tradition, like Jitsun Milarepa and Jagam Popa, and all of the Karmapas, imagining the beings of the Galupa lineage passed down from Lama Tsongkhapa to Kirtup J and Joseph J and Panchen Sonandrapa and Basu Chuji Jetson and Jayan Sheba and Janja Rupi Dorji and Gonchu Jimmy Wampo, imagining the first, second, third Dalai Lama, the fifth Dalai Lama, the seventh Dalai Lama, 14th Dalai Lama, all the Dalai Lamas you feel connections to, imagining them all in the space in front of you, highest Yoga Tantra deities, performance Tantra deities, action Tantra deities, all of the 35 Buddhas, all of the protector deities, imagining all of these beings are in the space in front of you, appearing just like a human being, appearing in the space in front of you, real, alive, animated, looking into your eyes with immense love and compassion, blessing us to be able to realize these teachings. We're making supplications to them to be able to realize each and every of the points that they've made, all of the points about the grounds and the paths and the Vinaya and Bodhicitta and the final view of emptiness of Yamaka Prasangika, and then all of the various tantras, highest yoga tantra, ending at the highest yoga tantra of the generation and completion stage practices. We're making supplications to be able to realize these things, all of which we'll need to realize in order to become Buddhas. And that's all we want, is what a Buddha has. So we should then set our minds towards that goal. We should be aiming our kind of minds kind of towards a really, really special spiritual goal. And that's what we're doing when we're doing these visualizations. So now that we've imagined that all sentient beings and all enlightened beings are here with us, beings who can teach us and bless us, and beings who we can work for their sake, and beings who all want what we have and are equally important. So now that we've imagined them all here, we'll recite the Heart Sutra, the Sutra of Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, imagining that we're at Vulture Peak Mountain and that we're able to see Chenrezig and Shariputra being blessed by Buddha Shakyamuni, and we're able to see this all going on, and all of the holy beings are around, and all the various levels of beings are there, and all of the beings that we've invited are there to be able to hear the final mode of existence of all phenomena, and that's the emptiness of inherent existence. The way that everything in the universe abides is empty of inherent existence. It's this aspect, this characteristic of all phenomena, whether it's the self of person or the self of phenomena. Either one is empty of inherent existence. We know that this, everything that we can come up with, every object, everything in the universe we can come up with, even our mind, is empty of inherent existence. And what that means doesn't mean that none of these things exist. And this is a big misunderstanding when the teachings on emptiness are given. Some people think that when we say no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, or we say there's no self, people think that the person doesn't exist. It's the mode of existence that's in question. When we look at ultimate analysis and we go to try to figure out if something exists the way it appears, we see if the thing exists objectively, has some sort of establishment by way of its own character. If we can find it from the side of the object, the kind of self that we're looking for, the kind of Jeff that we're looking for, isn't this conventional Jeff that's talking to you right now. The kind of Jeff that we're looking for is an inherently existent Jeff that can be found somewhere within the parts intrinsically or separate from the parts intrinsically. It's not looking to say that there's not a Jeff here. It's looking to say if the Jeff inherently exists right here or somewhere else findable. So we start to look to see if the way that things appear, like a chair over there appears to be inherently existent, it appears to exist from its own side, appears to be just in this container of my world and existing in its own right, established by way of its own character, self-established, self-existent. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with me in order for it to come into existence. And when we start to analyze when things like chairs and Jeffs, we look to see if there is something that intrinsically exists there, independent, some objective existence right within the object, something that is findable. It should be findable, some intrinsic nature. So we start to look for it. And that's what the investigation into ultimate truth is. The analysis into ultimate truth is to see if the things are us, other persons, and the other things that are in the world exist the way that they appear. Do their appearances tally with reality? They all appear to be inherently existent, kind of just sitting there from their own side. But the Prasangika view is, and what the Buddha came to tell us is that things are merely imputed in dependence upon a collection that serves as the basis of designation. They're merely imputed by the mind. There's a conceptualization, a mere imputation of the mind that is labeling something as this or that. And then there's a belief in my mind that the object is the truly existent referent of the label that I'm giving it. But when we start to try to find this truly existent thing that I've given a label, in this case, chair, a truly existent chair, I move towards the chair closer to try to find its true existence. It becomes very difficult to even have a chair as soon as I get close enough. I start to have just legs, and then I start to have just atoms and stuff when I get too close. But then when I move and step back from the object and I move out of this ultimate analysis to find out if there's something intrinsically findable there, I have to assert that there is something there that I'm labeling as chair. So what's going on here if when I'm standing far from something, it appears to be inherently existent, but then when I move closer to it, it isn't inherently existent? The conclusion that I have to come to is that there's a mode of existence that I'm not even considering. And this is where the philosophy starts. There's a mode of existence that I'm not considering, a subjective mode of existence instead of an objective mode of existence. And this is a very simplified way of putting it. I hope it didn't sound confusing, but it's really, we're taking our natural way things appear to us and seeing if that natural way things appear to us, ourselves, you, everything else that isn't person, tallies with reality. And if it doesn't tally with reality, then we're starting from a place that's messed up. And according to the great masters, that messed up starting place messes us up immensely. It mixes in with a self-cherishing attitude. It reinforces this need and mixes with it. It is not the self-cherishing attitude. It's different. And the self-cherishing attitude isn't an affliction per se, so it kind of mixes together and causes us all kinds of problems. But this kind of idea that things exist from their own side, independently of a designating consciousness, designating mind, makes me then have inappropriate attention about them, makes me think conceptually about them in a way that values them and says they're pleasant or unpleasant. And then when I do that, then I assign these values, then I decide that I want it or I dislike it. I push it away or I pull towards it. And then when I'm in the midst of pushing and pulling, I create all kinds of karma, and that causes me to cycle in cyclic existence. And it's the undoing of those things that causes me to be free from cyclic existence. Like the Rice Seedling Sutra says, that when we undo the links, when we undo the ignorance, it undoes the action, then undoes the consciousness. We see that the undoing of things allows for the latter things that are created from its being there don't occur. There's no way for them to arise. So the Heart Sutra is talking about the final mode of existence of all phenomena that we've never even considered. Non-philosophical people don't even think about whether things inherently exist or not. This is something that comes into when you start to study tenets. And then you say, because everyone just takes things for the way they are. If I don't see it, it's not there. And the way things are is the way it is. And you agree that chair is over there from its own side, and I agree. But we don't even really say that to each other. It just is the way it feels, the way it seems, the way it appears. And that's fine with us. The inherent existence appears to our sense consciousness. So why wouldn't we all just agree that without even having to qualify it with some philosophical understanding that, yeah, everything's just out there. It's all out there the way that it appears, and chairs are chairs and ducks are ducks. My neighbor thinks chairs are chairs and ducks are ducks. And there's nothing else they could be. We don't even question it. But when we start to philosophically question it, we see that we've been operating from a false premise for so long that, and that's so long since beginningless time, and this false premise that we've been operating under has caused the cycle to continue of being thrown into suffering states and not being able to achieve the highest amount of happiness. So we need to fix that. And then hidden within this Heart Sutra, the definitive point the Buddha is making here, what's definitively taught, what's explicitly here is the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. And then hidden within it is the five paths, the five Mahayana paths of path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning that are necessary to go through to be able to become a Buddha. So again, imagine that all sentient beings are reciting this with you, and we're here at Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita? Dressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity, no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, conscious, dhatu. No ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering. No path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as true, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teyata om gate gate paragate parasangate buddhi soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Kala jibe ni jo damba ne ngushe du chu nga yi du do jen du ba ba la ma yi bu jin zi ne sun kan jo sa la cha se lo ga sa ma da cha da ra sa ma ra be ga sa ma de a ga sa ma ra de sa da aga samara cha chandara samara ya be te ata om gate gate para sangate bodhi zo baba kancha sanji gae dembe doji je lobo doji mebo doji jewa doji dragi baje mete beje danje je den korye zo ha Kirin dan ja je 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 wa dan mi dun nu bei jan dan de wa dan dun ba dun jin bon zon zon jo ji da shi de jan den da de le shou. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanye Jodan Zoji Jonan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Junye Ji Bezonanji Drola Penjie Sanje Drubar Jog. I go for refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanye Jodan Zoji Jonan La Janjo Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Chushe Ji Bezonanji Drola Benji Zanye Drubar Jo. Now read Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities, the source of all my good, and then we'll get into the meditation that we're going to all do together right after. So I want to do just a glancing at all of the stages of the path, and they're summarized 14 stanza form. When we look at the outline that the glorious Pabonko Rinpoche gives to us, we say that the first category is how to find a teacher. And we know in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and the Lamrim text, we see that first section on relying on a spiritual teacher and the preliminaries before we get into the actual teachings for beings of small capacity. And we find all the qualities of the Lama that are necessary and the qualities found in the Mahayana Sutra Alankara of the 10 qualities of the Lama and the different, in the Tantra requested by Sabahu, I believe, we find the different 18 qualities and so forth that we can refer to when we're looking to what the Lama needs to have. So we look at this first category of relying on the teacher, how to find a teacher and what to kind of do to serve him or her. And then the next category, Pabonka Rinpoche says, what do you do once you find a teacher? Not related to serving him or her in terms of, okay, what do you do as a practitioner? And then we find the next 12 11 stanzas deal with what you should actually do. Had to do some math. What you should actually do once you've found a teacher. And we get into the teachings for beings of three capacities, beginning with kind of a preliminary about leisure and fortune. But that's what you do once you've found a teacher. You engage in what these 11 stanzas say. And then when we get to the 13th stanza, that's the fourth category, according to Pabonka Rinpoche's. And that's just a prayer to be able to not have any obstacles on the path, to always be surrounded by good spiritual friends and so forth, and to not have any problems, not have anything obstruct your ability to practice these things that are in here. And then the final prayer is so that you be able to never be separated from the perfect Lama that you've recognized in the first stanza as this foundation of all of your good qualities. You know that if you're not realized or liberated yet, your next life, you're not going to need anything more than a Lama who can teach you these things. Because the most important thing in the universe is a teacher, your teacher. So the last stanza is a prayer to never be separated from your kind teachers and to be able to achieve all the levels of the stages and the paths, grounds and paths and so forth, to be able to reach the place where you become Lord Vajradhara. So we'll read through this and then we'll just do the meditation from the Panchen Lama, and then we'll say good night or good morning wherever you're watching from. So this is translated as the source of all my good. I like this translation. It's poetic. There are other translations. So they're called the foundation of all good qualities. There's a few out there that are different. But I've used this one for years and I like the poetry behind it. So we use this one. It was translated, I believe, with Geshe Michael Roach, Geshe Lobsang Tarchen, Artemis Engels group. So I believe that's who translated this. We should always give respect to people who help us understand the words. And I particularly like the poetry in this. And it's just the preference to this particular poetry and not the lexicon of translation. You all know that I prefer Jeffrey Hopkins' lexicon in terms of technical terminology and so forth. So I just want to make that clear in terms of the Uma dictionary. I really prefer those kind of standardized words that we can bring right back into the Tibetan. And we have enough of the words to be able to match with the Tibetan without any kind of ambiguity. So I really believe in that style of translation, but I also my heart loves the poetic style of translation too. So I read all of them, even though my preference is a more technical translation. I find with the more nuanced poetic translations, even if they aren't as technically accurate, they give me a feeling that I can add to the tech, because what I know is technically exactly supposed to be in there. So I really encourage you, never be satisfied with partial instructions. And Umzala Aga said to me 4 classes ago that it was so beautiful that we have all these different translations and these different ways of looking at things, things that are more feeling, things that are more technical, even if it's the same exact text, because then we can really get a flavor for it. Because what we're trying to do is taste these teachings, not hear about what a French fry tastes like, eat a French fry. The source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs that we all do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They can't be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, and the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the past shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize, as well as I can, the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Wow. We're so lucky to have these texts that have everything that we need in them. We can do a running meditation or a glancing meditation just to kind of familiarize our mind with this pathway, this completely integrated path that takes us from wherever we are all the way to the highest goal of Buddhahood. It's just amazing that we have these practices and these teachings. So we talked about the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. And we talked about the desire to wish to emerge from the lower realms of cyclic existence. And all of those things contained within those practices for the teachings of beings of small capacity that were needed. The teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, such as the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, going for refuge, and acknowledging our downfalls if we've engaged in negativity by applying the four opponent powers. And of course, meditating on death and impermanence to try to make us actually want to get going. And that death and impermanence meditation is so important to carry on through all of the stages to keep this in mind so that you keep going. When we look at the latter sections in the Lamrim Chemo and the great scope section, the Mahayana section, we find the importance of going back to the death and impermanence meditations, the 3 roots and 9 reasons, in order to keep ourselves going, to have the joyous perseverance that we're going to need to keep going if we want to become Buddhas. So we've arrived at this section now that so we looked at the small scope and we saw the things that we had to do there and said, hey, in the small scope, we really want to be able to achieve a good basis in our next life. And then in the medium scope, we see that next life, next life, next life, how are we going to be so sure we can have good bases? And even if we have a good basis, we're in one now. Think about all the suffering that we have to have. And then there becomes a displeasure, dissatisfaction with all realms of cyclic existence. And you start to see that you're in a burning building and you want to get out and find the door as quickly as possible. The smoke's getting more and more and more. You're in this burning building called cyclic existence that is nothing but a place where you will hurt and will be painful. And once you have gotten to a place in your mind where you've meditated enough on the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination, you've meditated on the 8 sufferings and the 6 sufferings and the 3 types of suffering in such a way that you feel that samsara is that burning building and you want to get out, then you say, I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. And bless me to be able to see, bless me to be able to then not follow a pathway that's just for my own individual liberation. Yes, I see that I have a mess. I have a mess on my hands if I'm in cyclic existence. There's nowhere I can go, no matter where I am, if I'm in the lowest hells or the highest peak of cyclic existence, where I can have a state of satisfaction that won't turn into something that's worse eventually. I can't trust it. And the trusting of it, the little bits of happiness that I have are like bait that are the door to every single pain that I have. Recognizing that this burning building in that I'm in, I must escape from. I then turn towards those beings that I care and I love about, and I look at them and I see that they're caught in that same burning building and no one told them how to get out. I know how to get out because I know I've been told about the 3 highest higher trainings in the medium scope. I know that I have to have a wisdom that tallies with reality and a method that wants to definitely get out, but they don't know anything about that. So since I know I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life, bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother has fallen into, and grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Now, that wish itself is the aspiring bodhicitta that we're talking about here. And that doesn't just come out of nowhere. That doesn't just fall from the sky because you wish for it. It's an aspiration that comes about through cause and effect relationship. And there's these different practices, the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down from Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha. And then there's the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni, both passed down, obviously, from Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha is the 7-point cause and effect. And then the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice is passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Manjushri and Arya Nagarjuna. So tonight we're going to talk about the pre-step of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And we're going to look at it through the eyes of Panchen Losang Yeshe. So what I was saying before class started, he is depending on how you enumerate the Panchen Lamas, sometimes he would be considered the second Panchen Lama. There's Panchen Losang Yeshe, who was the teacher of the fifth Dalai Lama. And he is sometimes considered the first Panchen Lama, depending on the enumeration, but then sometimes considered the fourth Panchen Lama. More often than not, you see fourth Panchen Lama. Panchen Losang Yeshe as the fourth Panchen Lama, and then this Panchen Lama, Panchen Losang Yeshe, as the fifth Panchen Lama. But if you do it the other way, this is the second Panchen Lama. So it can get confusing when you get around the Panchen Lamas. It can get confusing, but it's amazing because both Panchen Lamas, the either the first or the fourth. We're going to just call them the fourth and the fifth, just because so I don't have to keep doing this circular motion. So the fourth Panchen Lama, Panchen Losang Yeshe, wrote the meditation manual, the easy path, and then the next Panchen Lama, the fifth Panchen Lama, Panchen Losang Yeshe, looked at this manual and then he elaborated on it and made a supplement to it. It's a little bit longer than the easy path presented by the fourth Panchen Lama, Panchen Losang Yeshe. This supplement is longer, so anytime you supplement, it's going to have more probably. So this is a supplement that's longer, and this particular text is a Lamrim meditation manual, and at this time, it became a popular tradition to write Lamrim meditation manuals. The fourth Panchen Lama, the fifth Panchen Lama, Goncho Dembe Drome, many people wrote these meditation manuals, and the fourth Panchen Lama's text has 9 topics. And this Panchen Lama, the fifth Panchen Lama's text, Panchen Losang Yeshe, also has 9 topics. So the 9 topics are, I'll read you the topics: relying on a spiritual guide, the precious human rebirth, impermanence in the form of death, the suffering of lower rebirths, going for refuge, and the principle of karma. Those are all under, let me read them as 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's not confusing. Number 1, relying on a spiritual guide. Number 2, precious human rebirth. Number 3, impermanence in the form of death, the suffering of the lower realms, going for refuge, and the principles of karma. Number 4, aspiring for liberation. Number 5, the path to liberation. Number 6, the sevenfold cause and effect instruction. Number 7, training in the Bodhisattva's deeds. Number 8, calm abiding. And number 9, special insight. So obviously, we're going right to the sevenfold cause and effect instruction. And this is a beautiful meditation practice. I encourage you, if you don't have this book, it's a beautiful book, The Swift Path, Panchen Losang Yeshe. Beautiful, beautiful book. The Wisdom Culture series, translated by ZG To, and a foreword by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Beautiful book. So let's get right into it, because I think that this is great to do as a practice. Now, again, you're imagining, so what you would do when we look at it in terms of practice, we could look at it in terms of the 6 preparations. So if this is the first practice you're going to do for the day or something, you would arrange images of enlightenment. You've cleaned the room. So the first preparation, clean your room and assemble images of enlightenment. Second preparation, put out beautiful offerings that you've obtained honestly. And the third preparation, now sit down, get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. Check your mind, see that your mind's clear, see that your mind isn't totally out haywire with excitement and dullness. Check your mind, see how it is, and then generate this kind of refuge. Take refuge, and you can do it in short forms, long forms, visualizations, not visualizations, and generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. This is all into the third category. The fourth category is that you imagine the merit field in the space in front of you. And in this particular visualization, now imagine that your root Lama, who's inseparable from your deity, so I always say Rinpoche inseparable from Aryatara, is at your crown. So you can imagine in two places. It's fine, in the merit field in the space in front of you, on your crown, and at your heart, if you like. However you'd like. Make this personal. So you're imagining the merit field in the space in front of you, and then you would make a seven-limb prayer offering. So number 4 is imagining the merit field. Number 5, you'd be making a seven-limb offering. And then number 6, you'd be making further supplications. And so these kinds of supplications you'll find in Panchen Lama's text here. So we'll read these as supplications. And then what Lama Tsongkhapa says in the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment is now, after the 6 preparations, you tell your mind exactly what to do and you don't let it do anything else. If you're going to meditate on a glancing meditation through all of the stages of the path, do that. Do that in the right order and don't start to wander off anything else. If you're going to then, say, hey, I'm really got to work on a specific topic within the Lam Rim, and that's going to be my main focus. I'll do some prayers and I'll look through the stages of the path in an order through prayers and so forth. And then I'm going to get to right where I'm at. I'm going to personalize this. I'm going to make this experience really taste worthy. I'm going to try to taste these teachings. And the only way I can do that is realizing them in a specific order. So you would be at this place of supplication where you'd be supplicating to be able to have a certain kind of realization. And we know that the pre-step for the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment is equanimity. So we have to get this equanimity. We have so much bias in our minds and we feel like it's okay. We feel like those bad people out there are jerks, and they are jerks, and they don't agree, and they're going to hurt the world. And this other people are going to hurt the world. There's all of these ideas that we have in our minds, that we put these things together and we decide they're not worthy of our respect. They're not worthy of our love and compassion. Yet the robin, the murderer out our window, is our friend. We have such a crazy, crazy mind, and we have to just try to stabilize it through these practices. So here, what we'll have is each of these meditations on these topics has a preparation, the actual meditation, a conclusion, and then advice what to do between sessions. So what a meditation manual to be able to have through all the various points that are made in the Lam Rim. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Yeah, let's go right to the practice. So when meditating, so the actual meditation on the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, we're not going to do each of the steps. We'll do the steps along when we go through the teaching on the steps. We'll combine it somehow. We're just going to do the equanimity part tonight. We're going to see how the Panchen Lama, the 5th Panchen Lama, would meditate on this. Wow, imagine that. We have a way to look at how the Panchen Lama meditates on equanimity. You don't have to hear how I'm saying it, trying to combine sources from this and that and in an oral tradition. Here it is, right here, what the Panchen Lama says to do. When meditating on the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, you must first achieve impartiality towards all sentient beings. If you neglect to do so, any love and compassion you generate will only be partial, and partial love and compassion is not great love and compassion. This is because great love or great compassion must encompass all sentient beings. It is said, the supreme fruit of the complete tree of Bodhicitta arises from the unbroken seed of compassion that is moistened by the water of love in the ground of equanimity. O omniscient one, at your feet I make request. So we start to make these prayers of supplication and so forth right at the beginning of the practice. We're always trying to connect with these holy beings and our teachers, and that was from a supplication to the lineage masters from Tsongkhapa's actual supplication to the lineage masters of the glorious Guhya Samaja. So that's from Guhya Samaja Tantra, apparently. So it makes this request. Therefore, while meditating on the Guru deity above your crown, so now you're imagining with the deity above your crown. So now you're going to start to just follow these instructions as they're laid out. Visualize in front of you. And so you could imagine that the entire merit field goes, you can imagine contained within or all. There's a way to imagine that your Lama, who's inseparable from the root deity, contains the whole merit field. So you could then suck the merit field into your Lama, who is inseparable from the deity at your head, at your heart. Or you could have the backdrop still of the merit field in front of you and its glory and splendor. Make this a personal practice. I can't tell you how to meditate and change your mind. Look at different instructions and see what works for you. So reflect as follows. Putting myself in their shoes, I can understand that they want to be happy and do not want suffering. So you're imagining neutral people in front of you. So again, remember I said, when you're meditating on this equanimity practice, you start with neutrals, then you move on to loved ones, then you move on to difficult people, then you move on to just anybody else out there in the universe. So now we're beginning with neutrals. You're putting a neutral being, putting myself in the, so it says, clearly visualize a neutral person, and then you can build more and more. So it always talks about taking a person at a time, or however you want to do it. Putting myself in their shoes, I can understand that they want to be happy and do not want to suffer. Therefore, instead of benefiting them sometimes by holding them close and harming them sometimes by holding them distant, again, this is a neutral being, I will develop the impartiality that is free from bias of attachment and aversion towards them. Guru deity, please bless me that I may do so. So these are the supplications. We're looking at what is the supplication like in the sixth preparation. You're making supplications to be able to be successful in your practice. You're getting intimate with equanimity. I want to be intimately, have my mind intimately infused by equanimity. May I please be blessed to be able to have this happen so that right on this seat that I'm sitting, I actually realize this non-biased attitude. So incredible we have these instructions. Then think, from having made supplications in this manner, streams of 5-colored nectar, white, yellow, red, blue, green, white, yellow, red, blue, green. These light rays descend from your descent. Okay, so from having made supplications in this manner, streams of 5-colored nectar along with light rays descend from the body of the Guru deity above your crown. So imagine all of these light rays, cool waves, nectars are all permeating your body and mind and all those of all sentient beings. And they cleanse us of all misdeeds and obstructions we have masked since beginningless time, and in particular those misdeeds and obstructions that prevent the special realization of the impartiality or equanimity free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Our bodies become the nature of transparent light. Our lifespan, merit, and all the excellent qualities of scripture and realization develop and increase. The special realization of impartiality, equanimity, that is free from the bias of attachment and aversion is produced in our mental continuum. Now, if you are a hermit, so it's Tsongkhapa who's speaking. This is someone who dwelled in cages, so this is who he relates to. But we all have neighbors. So amazing we have these teachings. I just can't believe it. Now, if you're a hermit, visualize your neighbor living to the right of your dwelling and cultivate impartiality towards him or her. When you have succeeded in doing so, do the same with your neighbor on the left. Next, meditating by visualizing both together, and turn meditate on others. When your mind has become impartial towards neutral persons, meditate by visualizing a person whom you regard as pleasing. So now you expand it. So it says here, the Panchen Lama is saying, you've now had a neutral person, and now you're expanding it. You're doing, okay, the neighbor who lives here, then the neighbor who lives there, because he's saying you're a hermit. They're neutral at this point for the hermit. So whoever those neutral beings are, he's just saying, like, don't just say one or just make a stadium of people who are kind of like neutral. He's saying, make this matter. Make this matter in your meditation. When your mind is kind of become impartial towards neutral persons, meaning like, I'm not going to just throw them out, I'd be willing to benefit them as equally as I'm going to land on those that I hate, really, really love or really dislike. So you're going to develop not this like idea that's like, duh, Panchen Losang talks about it as being an equal willingness to be of benefit. Just you'd equally be willing, like this equally open mind, just to get a feeling for what this equanimity tastes like. It doesn't just taste like everybody is someone you'd throw out. It's like feeling a closeness to people without attachment, and being able to bring those you'd normally want to push away, bring you close to them without attachment, and a neutral being, not throwing them out, but bringing them close to you without attachment. So then you think of those loved ones and you start with the person that's closest to you. And then you say, from the prophecy concerning the girl, Chandra Tara Sutra says, in the past, I killed all of you. Wow. Nothing like shifting gears. In the past, I killed all of you. Likewise, you previously hacked me to pieces and slayed me. We are all enemies and killed one another. Why do you also engender attachment? And it says, reflect as follows. My partial mind towards this pleasing person occurs through the force of attachment. By craving for what is pleasing, I have been taking rebirth in samsara since beginningless time. So it's amazing. You see this idea that you found in the medium scope under the six sufferings. I really tell you to all go to the six suffering section, Lama Tsongkhapa's text, and reinforce this idea about loved ones in your mind. It's really important. Your family, relatives, servants, retinue, friends, and so forth are just like people who have come together in a bazaar to conduct dealings and have become acquainted for several days before parting ways. Therefore, do not develop attachment towards anyone. You'll be in another market, in another time, and those beings that you consider enemies will be your closest loved ones, maybe. And you were in a market before, a million lifetimes ago, in a market, and those beings that you consider your enemies right now are distasteful people you love more than anything on the face of the earth. Oh, it's the disgustingness of samsara. This is what we come to develop. So now it says that therefore don't develop attachment. Engaging in Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, it says, leaving all behind, I must depart alone. Not understanding this, I committed all manner of misdeeds for the sake of friends and foes. Even my foes will become nothing. My friends will become nothing. I too will become nothing. Likewise, all will become nothing. And the Lamrim text countering the four attitudes says, all of one's parents, children, nephews, nieces, friends, and helpers, take them as unrelated to each other, like travelers gathered at a destination. So this idea of this market, this destination, we're just traveling lifetime to lifetime. And this was our destination. Right now, I'm Jeff, and that I'm merely imputed as Jeff in dependence upon dependence upon five aggregates in my case that serve as a basis of designation. There's no Jeff that exists right in that basis of designation. Or I really feel like there's some sort of Jeff that's either separate in there, that's just driving a tractor Jeff, driving my parts Jeff, or I feel like it's just right here inside of me in these parts. And this is what we need to get rid of. We're just merely designated in dependence upon causes and conditions that kind of came together and made us experience this experience with the people we're experiencing it along with. And we're all in this in the long run for a long time. And when we become Buddhas, we'll be helping everyone. And then when we aren't Buddhas, we're going to keep cycling around cyclic existence with all of these types of beings, friends, enemies, and neutrals, who we're labeling right now incorrectly because we aren't intelligent enough to see that we've existed since beginningless time. And the I, if you were I's mother in a previous life, you're the I's mother. I didn't say Jeff, I said I. Jeff is just the I right now that's imputed, the imputed I on this basis. Who's I? Jeff. Who are you? I'm Jeff. Who was I? Who knows? I was imputed as someone else on a different basis of designation, but I was still I. And I still clung to the I the way I do right now. And the mind that I had to cling to mine of. My mind, and the objects of my mind. that I clung to. When you've cultivated impartiality towards people who you feel are pleasing, clearly visualize in front of you sentient being you have labeled as unpleasant, and cultivate impartiality towards them by reflecting as follows. This doesn't have anything to do with Tonglen at this point. This is really just analytical meditation to show your mind that it's crazy to have this kind of bifurcation and think that this person's good and that person's bad and so forth, when everyone's equally been all of these different things. It gets you kind of set up to be able to engage in things like Tonglen. But Tonglen's a very high practice that is really taught too early to many people. And it can cause a lot of mental anguish in the long run and not really do much for you. Also, if you're just playing a little video game in your mind where light rays are coming and going and you think you're helping people. So really, I encourage you to make these things matter. And if you're doing Tonglen and you really think it's your main practice, make sure that you have a recognition that all beings are equally important and that you've looked at the soundfalls of the self-cherishing attitude and the benefits of cherishing others. And you've really, really saturated your mind with renunciation to understand what you think people need to get out of, what you think people are suffering with, what you think people actually need for love. The only way you find that out is to find out what you need. So now we moved on to enemies, or those we find difficult. The reason why I'm not impartial towards them is that my mind apprehends them as absolutely disagreeable, whereby aversion is produced. As long as my mind is partial towards them, there's no way I can generate bodhicitta. Engaging in the bodhisattva deeds says, whatever wholesome deeds, such as generosity and making offerings to the sugatas that have been amassed over 1,000 eons, will all be destroyed in an instant of anger. We see that towards our enemies we become anger, and it just destroys all of our goodness. Master Chandrakirti says, one instant of anger at a bodhisattva destroys the virtues arising from giving and ethics accrued over 100 eons. Thus, there can be no worse failing than impatience. And we know that we don't know who's who. I just said the mailman might be a Buddha. Careful. Reflect on the drawbacks of hatred and anger as taught, and put a stop to them. Moreover, as was stated in the passage from Questions of Sabahu Tantra, cited under the topic of uncertainty in the section on persons with medium capacities, here it is again, sending you back in the Lamrim. Foes, friends, and strangers are never certain. Therefore, pondering why do I hate them? Put a stop to hatred and cultivate impartiality. When you have pondered impartiality with respect to disagreeable persons, clearly visualize in front of you two figures. Now you're going to go back and check it. A mother-like sentient being who is greatly pleasing, and now a foe-like sentient being who's greatly displeasing, and reflect as follows. So now you've circled back in your meditation to those two beings that either create attachment or aversion, and you check to see if the temperature in the room of attachment or aversion has gone down. You put them right next to each other. Wow. Putting myself in their shoes, I can understand that they are similar in wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer. This person I now hold as my friend has acted as my main foe countless times since beginningless samsara, and this person I now hold as my foe has been my mother and nurtured me with loving kindness until also countless times in beginningless samsara. So, to whom should I be attached? For whom should I have aversion? I will maintain impartiality, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Guru, deity, please bless me that I may do so. When you have attained impartiality, a mother-like sentient being who is greatly pleasing and a foe-like sentient being who is greatly displeasing, meditate on impartiality towards all sentient beings. The way to do so is as follows. All sentient beings. So now it's spreading it out to all sentient beings are similar in desiring happiness and not desiring suffering, since all sentient beings have been my kin. Instead of benefiting some by holding them close and harming others by holding them distant, I will regard them with impartiality, free from bias and attachment and aversion. Guru, deity, please bless me that I may do so. From having made this supplication in this manner, streams of 5-colored nectar along with light rays descend from the body of the Guru deity above my crown, permeating my body and my mind and also those of all sentient beings. They cleanse us all of the misdeeds and obstructions we have masked since beginningless time, and in particular those misdeeds and obstructions that prevent us from impartiality towards all sentient beings, that prevent us from equanimity towards all sentient beings. The special realization of equanimity towards all sentient beings is produced in our mental continuum. So we're just, it's there. This equanimity is produced, we imagine. Now we meditate on the points of the 7-point cause and effect. Wow. Heavy, lovely, lucky. It's just all things I'm thinking right now. And I hope you feel the same way. I really do. And if you meditate on these topics and you read these books and you start to see how much this makes sense and how just incredible this material is, you'll feel this way too, I feel. Just lovely. Rejoice, rejoice, be happy, be happy. As Gen Hopkins said as he was teaching the remembering Mama, identifying Mama, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. And thank you so much for your kind listening. Thank you for allowing me to continue to give these teachings and having those beings to listen to be able to hear these teachings, because it's an immense amount of benefit for myself to be able to saturate my mind with these things and to talk about them, and then to see, even when I'm doing these meditations, where my weaknesses are. So tomorrow morning, when I get on my cushion, I can advance my practice. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Japa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva. I make firm apologies if that's been this case. Om benza sato samaya mana balaya benza sata zena majita dita me baba zutokaya me baba zubokaya me baba anurakta sarva siddhi me prayata sarva kama sucha me kitam shriyam kuruhum. Ah, Bhagavan Sava Tata Gata Benza Mame Moka Benza Baba Maha Samaya Safa Ahom Fe Pe. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama. Jorama Jorama Jojorama Tunjakala Rajamo Ramo Ajadaja Tunjo Rudo Rudo Hongjo Hon. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-fulfilling jewel in our earth, on our earth. He can go wherever he wants to. He's omniscient. In our earth, if there's beings that he needs to help there. Lord Chen Rezig right here with us. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso. Please remain until samsara ends. In a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, my root teacher, may he please swiftly return in whatever form he finds is most helpful for me and for you, and help us all to quickly become Buddhas. A complex yogi, and also make supplications in your own mind to any of your own lamas who passed away. Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, Demolocha Rinpoche. I think Demolocha Rinpoche has been recognized, but any beings that haven't been recognized, making supplications for them to come, and if they have been recognized, making supplications for them to be showing themselves in all of their glory like they were in their previous lives. How's that? A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ah Om, Om Ah Om, Om Ah Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It's by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us and all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. May your holy teacher never leave your heart, never leave your crown. In all our lives, may we never be separated from our holy teachers, who are the foundation of everything good that we are and will become. Thank you.